What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here alongside Josh Davis. We are, or at least I am, on the road here. We have some breaking news, though, as Philadelphia has released Derek Barnett, not only to get rid of the former first-round draft pick and pass rusher Josh, but potentially to make some room for another player.
Yeah. Crazy. As we're coming on here, talking about it, what's the potential impact, what's going to happen, but I'm not sure that I saw it coming as much as, we've talked about Derek Barnett, being looked at being traded or the possibility there. It felt like he was going to stay on the roster, but then all of a sudden, you get the personal out or being out for personal reasons. And, it's one game, and then all of a sudden it leads into he's still out from practice for personal reasons. We saw the most recent practice injury report. So you go, well, is there more going on behind the scenes here? And turns out, obviously, there is. And so, speculations kind of continued up. But there's obviously massive impacts here. My immediate takeaway, and people know this, I've already gotten comments immediately on Twitter and the comment section here. It's Nolan time. Like that's I'm excited about that. I think we would be remiss, though. We would certainly give Derek Barnett the credit in the Super Bowl, coming up with a fumble recovery. I mean,
Sure.
That's crucial. A forever play. So kudos to him for that. But just in a what have you done for me recently type of league, we just hadn't seen a whole lot. And so this is a move the Eagles feel comfortable about making. You wonder, like, locker room ramifications too. Did that impact something? Was the attitude not there? You don't ever want negative vibes in the locker room. And perhaps I don't know. I haven't seen reports. I'm not saying that's true, but I'm just
Right.
You look at the reasoning for this, and maybe so. But you open up the playing time for Nolan Smith. And also a potential Shaq Leonard. I mean, come on, where are we with that? So curious to know. You did a great breakdown of that, of the potential in Shaq Leonard. So if nobody's seen that, go check out Thomas's channel there. He did a good breakdown. But now with this happening, it's got to be more likely, right? I mean, this is not a given, but a likely scenario.
Well, they didn't have a roster spot, but technically people are saying it could be Quez Watkins, but Quez Watkins is probably not ready to come off of IR, and so why else would you let him go other than A, to create the roster spot, or B, to go ahead and give Nolan Smith more time, which you already mentioned? I think the Shaq Leonard thing is all but a done deal. I'd be very surprised if he signs with anybody else. His connection to Nick Sirianni is wanting to go ahead and win a championship, and Philadelphia needing a linebacker. Now, we can talk about Nolan Smith or, getting more pass rushing time being a big part of this, but I see them wanting to at least add depth to the linebacker spot. Christian Ellis is not the third best linebacker, or he is third best linebacker on this team, but he's not really the third best linebacker if you were to insert Shaq Leonard into this situation. And so I think Howie had to create the roster spot, and even if he doesn't go get Shaq Leonard, Derek Barnett wasn't playing either. He was a healthy scratch the past couple of weeks. He hasn't done anything in terms of being on the field and getting sacks. And like I've been saying with Nolan Smith, and you just mentioned it, at least we get to see him on the football field. This is a very good master's degree learning year for Nolan Smith, where he's not expected to go out there and get a real job. You talk about a master's degree, you're still trying to learn, but you're starting to get more real-world experience. And whether he gets you 3 or 4 sacks the rest of the way or no sacks the rest of the way, it's better than keeping him on the bench, because it's not like Derek Barnett was giving him any sort of, run for his money in terms of the sack position as well. I'm curious, though, with Shaq, if the Eagles sign him, would you then immediately put him into the starting lineup? Do you ease him into it? Do you rotate 3 linebackers around? How would you do it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I got some hate for it. I understand. I mean, Shaq Leonard, former All-Pro, but he hadn't been to the level. And, you talk about kind of ever since some injuries and not kind of up to par. It takes a little bit of time to learn too. So personally, I mean, I've been all right with Zach Cunningham and Nicholas Morrow. Certainly Zach Cunningham as of late, but I don't think that you immediately insert him there. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have, maybe a rotational, which is a little odd, to be honest, but we've seen it the entire season. I mean, decides like, oh, hey, let's throw Nakobe Dean in there a little bit. Let's rotate in and out guys. So you might still see that. But if you got Shaq Leonard, to me, I'd say let's ease him into it, because the linebackers have played fairly well. And certainly, from the standpoint of Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham. So, you let him get acclimated. All of a sudden you say, okay, let's go. Maybe, a couple games into it, you feel comfortable where he's at. He's got the pickups, the play call or the calls coming in, something like that. It doesn't feel near as drastic or a dire situation like it was with a Kevin Byard, right? I mean, like when Kevin Byard, even though it was like, hey, it's a short week, I don't care. Like, get in there. We need someone at the safety position. Let's take care of it. For the linebacker spot, even if we don't sign Shaq Leonard and nothing comes of that, I'm still not panicking. It'd be great to, like you mentioned, have a better third linebacker than Christian Ellis, but still, it's not like a panic situation for me now. So I'd say you'd be fine personally, if you just wait a second and say, get acclimated, get comfortable, make sure you're good. Yes, okay, now if we feel like you're worthy of going in and getting the starting job, that's great, but not a dire situation, I don't think.
Well, And think about from Howie's perspective, the two reports that came out yesterday from both Ian Rappaport and I believe Adam Schefter saying it was Dallas and Philadelphia, the two teams that are seemingly going to be interested in making a phone call to Leonard's agent and trying to sign the former All-Pro. Dallas needs a linebacker. They lost Leighton Vander Esch a couple of weeks ago, and Philly, of course, has lost Nakobe Dean. And if you're Howie Roseman, if anything, kicking the tires on Shaq Leonard does two things. One, you have the potential to get something out of a player who the Colts deemed not worthy of paying $6+ million a year, at least not having him on the roster. And two, keep him away from the Dallas Cowboys in case he does become a good player, right? This is a zero risk, high reward situation. If he doesn't pan out, you're giving him the veteran minimum, which is, hundreds of thousands of dollars versus millions of dollars. He doesn't have to play. You have two linebackers in Cunningham and Morrow who have played well. And then also, if he does play well, you keep him away from the Dallas Cowboys who, listen, we watched what they did yesterday. Sure, it was the Washington Commanders who just fired their defensive coordinator in Jack Del Rio, but it's still a pretty darn good roster and a team you're going to have to beat in a couple of weeks in order to win the NFC East and get the 1 seed. So I don't see why not. But when you go back to Derek Barnett here, listen, I appreciate the fumble recovery. His rookie season was always his best season. The sack of, Case Keenum in the NFC title game, right? There have been times where he's been good, but penalties went ahead and kind of, floundered his overall career. He couldn't stay healthy the past couple of seasons, and he wasn't producing. And even if the Philadelphia Eagles are just cutting him to cut him, and that's the end of it. They don't, activate Quez Watkins this week. They don't go sign Shaq Leonard. It's about time. He was not on an expensive contract. He was going to be a free agent anyway, and it's at the point where if he's just dead weight, why are you keeping him on a roster that has Super Bowl aspirations?
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think it's one of those two situations there. And by the way, just for those that are joining us as of recently, I've seen a couple comments saying, hey, is this official? Is this official? Because the Eagles haven't officially reported it themselves or confirmed it, I guess, but it's from Adam Schefter. So it is official. We know that. But Adam says Eagles waiving Derek Barnett today per sources, no longer going to be on the team. So there you go. It's official. I'm with you, though. I think it's either the fact that you're going to see, I lean towards Howie's going to make some sort of move. It doesn't feel like, as we know, Howie is very calculated. It's not like let's get rid of him and we'll figure out something. It feels like it's we're about to make a splash, or maybe it's Quez, but I don't know. I hope it's not just let's re-up a Quez Watkins roster spot. Maybe who knows? But I feel like it's some sort of move you're going to see pretty soon. Otherwise, the only other situation I could think of, and again, I will preface to make sure that people understand this, I have not seen this, I've not read this anywhere, but perhaps there was a locker room culture issue or concern because of the lack of snaps he was getting. Maybe it was becoming a problem. So, hey, you know what? We're a winning football team. We don't need that on this team, so let's just go ahead and move him. So if you don't see an immediate move, like you mentioned, Quez doesn't get brought up, you don't have any signing of Shaq Leonard, then it kind of suggests that there was an issue there, or they didn't feel like the morale that he was bringing, or the lack of morale was worth it. And you say, hey, you know what? Good luck to you. Go find something somewhere else. So I don't know, but I'm in favor of it. Like you mentioned, he wasn't making a whole lot of plays. I know people said, hey, he's good in the run game. Sure, he was okay. I mean, he was probably better than Nolan Smith, because we talked about with the size and how he was getting moved around, but it's not like he was a significant mover or shaker on that side. It's not like when Derek Barnett's in the lineup, you say, oh, great, the run defense is going to be so much better, and certainly not the pass rush getting home, because he wasn't doing anything. So I think ultimately it's better. You improve the group or the squad of this team, where you have the potential there. And now we wait and see, because Howie, as we know, is Howie, and you could better believe he's been making those calls. I can guarantee you been in contact with Shaq Leonard. Reports were also from, I believe it's Schefter or maybe somebody else, but Shaq would go around meeting with some potential teams, see what the best suitor is. So I'm all for you. If you can ever steal it from a division rival and a conference rival, like, better him to come here than over to Dallas. So hopefully that's the case. But we will be at that Dallas game. You mentioned that. But for those that might be there, we'll be at the Dallas game. Looking forward to that one. That'll be a big one for sure.
Let's also emphasize that, Nolan Smith getting more reps is great, but Nolan Smith was getting more reps the past 2 weeks. He took those Barnett reps away, and he was still only playing 12% of defensive snaps. I think he had 9 snaps total just last week against the Kansas City Chiefs. He's barely playing. So even if Barnett being let go, you kind of go, oh, well, we just lost a little depth at outside linebacker or depth at pass rusher, for instance. You're losing 9 snaps worth of a player who, again, wasn't producing by any sort of means. Now, if this does open up the roster spot for Shaq Leonard, Josh, we need to at least cover this idea of who Shaq Leonard is, right? Because I talked about this on my show just a couple days before the Thanksgiving break, and I'm obviously not at my home studio for people who didn't figure that out yet. We're in Texas. I'm with Texas. Same state as Josh now, but Shaq Leonard is not 2021 Shaq Leonard. 2018 to 2021 Shaq Leonard was the best linebacker in football, a 3-time All-Pro. I mean, led his team in tackles, 100-plus every single year. The guy was incredible, but he has back surgery twice. He has an ankle injury. He goes through concussions. It just never got back right, and the Colts felt like, hey, we're paying him $6+ million a year this year. We're going to eat that money and still let him go because they had a chance to get him back into the lineup. Because I saw people on my comment section saying, well, he played 60% of the snaps. True. But when they lost their starting linebacker, they chose an undrafted free agent linebacker over Shaq Leonard. Like, you're not getting 2021 Shaq Leonard. But Shaq still thinks he can play. And he was giving away turkeys in downtown Indianapolis on, Wednesday afternoon, right after the news broke. And he said, I can make a team better. I want to go ahead and win. And that's your hope. It's a low-risk, high-reward situation. And maybe he turns out to be Robert Quinn, where he does absolutely nothing, looks washed, and doesn't play another down for any NFL team. Or he is slightly better than Nicholas Morrow in pass coverage, or he's slightly better than Zach Cunningham in run stopping. Like, his PFF grades before the injury are in the 90s for both of those. Post-injury, they're down to the 60s and 40s. So I'm curious if you think you're going to get even 50% of 2021 Shaq Leonard, 80% of 2021 Shaq Leonard. How much would you need in order to be impressed by it?
Yeah, it's a great question, honestly. And as you were saying this too, Salah Alantir, I may not say that name said, but guys, Shaq Leonard is cut for a reason. He's been very pedestrian this year, to put it mildly. That's true, and that's kind of what you were alluding to there. I mean, with the grading and after the injury, I think that yes, he was cut for a reason. But as we've seen, and it works both ways, I know that. But as we've seen, sometimes you get a player who you come to a Super Bowl contender, you come to a organization like this, a winning culture. Yeah. And it changes things. You have one last ride, so to speak. Hey, maybe he can find the fountain of youth. I know he's only 28, but younger than me. But football age, that's all. That's getting up there. So maybe he can find something. Personally, I mean, yeah, I'd say you hit the nail on the head. Probably about an 80% ish. He doesn't have to be back up to the 100% of what he was post injury. But if he's in that 80% range, like I say, the way that Desai oddly uses linebackers is a lot of times in a rotational scheme, and I wouldn't necessarily think that works. But so far, we've seen it at times. So maybe you even say he's not playing every snap every game. He's playing 40%, 50% of the snaps. But situationally, it makes sense to get him out there. He makes some big plays, makes some good stops. So I don't know. I could see this working out. And I agree also. North Philly Mo says risk reward with Shaq. That's exactly what it is. If you sign him, it's an ultimate risk reward. But I think and you talked about this on your show a couple days ago as well, but it is not only the risk reward, but it's that character. It's that leadership, that mentality that you want to bring. Shaq Leonard is not a risk in terms of all of the intangibles that you're going to get in the roster and the leadership in the room. He's very similar to me, or how I view the Kevin Byard signing. Like, when he came over, it wasn't a question of how is he going to impact the locker room culture. That's going to be fantastic. It's just, can he still play at that level that he once was? Can he find that again? And I think that, gladly he did a little bit against the Chiefs. We were somewhat concerned even in the Kansas City game, but he started to play better. He's had his best game to this point. Can Shaq Leonard, if he were to come to Philly, do the same thing? And I'm not necessarily totally opposed to it. I think that he possibly could.
Green Wingman with a $20 super chat here says, the only way that Shaq Leonard works if he's willing to accept a backup role. If he doesn't accept that, I'm sad to say he's a Cowboy. Well, I think he's understandable going to accept a backup role with either the Dallas Cowboys or the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not concerned about that. I see it like a Linval Joseph and Dominican Sue signing in the middle of the season last year. They were signed to add depth. They did not play a lot of snaps, but they were there in case the worst were to happen and you were to lose a defensive tackle, and then you had to play some undrafted no-name guy who couldn't play 3/4 of football, right? I mean, imagine what would happen if the Eagles lost Nicholas Morrow. Like, knock on wood, heaven forbid. With Dean already out, you lose Morrow, you're playing Christian Ellis, who they don't want to play in a starting linebacker situation at all. I think they'd much rather have Leonard, and so he's not going to play right away. He might be a backup right away, but if you needed to thrust someone in there on a year where you have the 1 seed in your sights, where you're 9-1, where you might have the best roster in football, where you're all in for a Super Bowl, giving him a couple extra grand over what the Dallas Cowboys could offer might be the smart enough move in order to create a situation where if the injury were to happen, the Eagles would be just fine. That's where I'm at on Shaq Leonard. Like, the idea that he's going to come in here and rip away the starting job from Morrow by week 2 is ridiculous. He couldn't win it on the Colts. But if you get to week 17 and injury happens, if you're in the NFC title game and Morrow goes down for a couple of series, would you rather have Shaq Leonard, a former All-Pro, who at least knowledge-wise, maybe not health-wise, knowledge-wise is way smarter than, football-wise than what's his name, Christian Ellis. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think most people would definitely agree.
No, totally, yes, and with Nakobe Dean, as much as, we love Nakobe Dean, hopefully he comes back from the injury well, but he struggled and he's not stayed healthy, so can you count on
Yeah.
him? Who knows? Who really knows in that situation? But I think it's a similar of, he's not as good as he once was, but can he be as good once as he ever was? I mean, maybe, perhaps there's a situation there, but yes, I would much rather have a backup playing in that scenario than somewhere else. I think Mason McCray had said, "I'm surprised Shaq hasn't signed with anyone yet." Yeah, true. But again, I think the
Sure.
reports were that he was going to feel things out, see what teams might need him, where they could use. Question is, again, how much of a contender is he wanting to go to? How much playing time is he going to be offered? Or, what's the
Yeah.
enticing aspect, I guess, of that? But if he wants to go to a contender, and what Adam Schefter said is, it sounds like the Cowboys and the Eagles are the main ones expected to be interested, which is not really a surprise. So I'm all for it. I mean, yes, if it comes down to a couple $1,000s extra, because it's not going to be a massive contract either way,
Right.
hey, slip it a little bit extra to Shaq, because if you want to keep him away from the Cowboys, that's never a bad thing. By the way, real quick, if we can get a thumbs up, we got a ton of people here. Appreciate all the views right now, but up to 1,000 views.
Yep.
I don't know what the exact count on likes are, but if we could quickly hit the like button, studies have shown that helps the Eagles acquire other players. So if you want Shaq Leonard, hit the like button. That's, for what that's worth.
Think about what Julio Jones was like when the Eagles signed him. We all said, okay, he's been injured, he's been washed, he's probably not going to do much, and he's stayed injured, he's played a bunch of snaps, and he's come through in certain moments. Think of the go-ahead touchdown against the Washington Commanders. If you could just copy and paste what Julio Jones has done to a linebacker like Shaq Leonard, who fits a locker room very well, who has leadership abilities, who can help young linebackers grow, and still give you a couple of plays here and there against your division rival, like, it just, to me, it screams a huge success. Julio Jones has been a massive success. No one was expecting him to catch 10 passes or 10 touchdowns this year. He catches 3, and 3 of them are in big games, the Washington game, maybe the Cowboy game, maybe a playoff game. He will be a overwhelming success because of how cheap he is and how incredible he is in that locker room. You see these behind-the-scenes stuff that the Eagles post on their YouTube channels. The guys love him. A.J. Brown loves him. Smitty loves him. Jalen Hurts loves the guy. I think you get the same exact thing coming with Shaq Leonard. So we're up to 185 likes, by the way. So if you guys hit the like button, we'd appreciate that as well.
There we go. Okay, yes, absolutely. It's helping with the Shaq Leonard signing, as we just mentioned. But no, I'm with you. What was the is the mic'd up from AJ? I think in the Cowboys game, right? Whatever Julio's saying. I can't say it right here fully, but we got that little MF for that. So that was hilarious. But still, yes. And Jalen saying, whenever he's throwing to AJ, he's like, "I thought you were Julio for a second." But yes, the vibes that they have, the culture, the dynamic there's no concerns from that. If you get a Shaq Leonard, everything we've heard and seen, you talked about it too, but sticking up for Sirianni. The opening presser, Sirianni has not been, was not necessarily great. I didn't come away from his opening presser, truth be told, saying, "Oh, that eludes a lot of confidence." I don't know that a lot of people were, but yeah, Shaq Leonard steps up saying, not all people are not all people are good press conference or in front of public speaking, whatever the case was, but sticks up because he's a good ball coach. So again, whatever the Chiefs are whining about and crying with Sirianni and all that mess. But no, I think Shaq Leonard would be a good acquisition for Philly. You're not asking him, like you say, to come in, be a major impact, major addition to the squad, at least immediately from the forefront, at least what I think.
Let's wrap up here by going back to the original news, and that is, of course, Derek Barnett. The whole reason we're doing this live show is we end things. Listen, both of us, I never liked the draft pick of Derek Barnett. I thought it was a reach. I know he had a lot of sacks in college, but he never felt like he was going to do much. And then his rookie year, he did, especially in the postseason. He was incredible with, 7, 8 sacks that first season. But ever since, he just never blossomed into his own. Multiple, big, long injuries, penalties seemingly to be kind of an issue. He got into a lot of fights at training camp. It just wasn't worth what he was putting out on the field. And it finally got to that point where they said, well, we can either give Nolan Smith reps, who is going to be here for at least the next 5 years, who we think is going to turn into be a really good pass rusher, but needs more time to grow, or we can keep giving Barnett snaps and keep just wasting those snaps. Like, it just didn't make a lot of sense. And so while we wish him the best, I bet some other team is going to offer him a veteran minimum and sign him for the next offseason and, take one last run at a former first-round draft pick. It felt like it was, well overdue, and now you create the roster spot and the ability to go sign somebody if that's what this is for.
Yep. It makes a whole lot of sense. Again, we got some people here saying grateful for Barnett and his contribution, especially the Super Bowl, but it was the right move. I agree. It is. He helped us there. We'll forever be indebted or grateful for that situation. But as of what have you done for me lately? And we talked about kind of in the open.
Yeah,
it is. This was the right move. Whether it is a combo or it'll probably a blend of everything, but it gets a little bit more snaps for Nolan. Now, maybe not a whole lot, but still a little bit more snaps for Nolan, so he can learn. It's another possibility for a roster spot. So keep an eye out. We'll probably see some more moves soon. Depending on the timing, I may be available. I'm going to be on vacation the next week. I know you're traveling a little bit too, but if we can, we will certainly go live for those. But I would expect Howie to make some sort of move. Probably, my guess would be like in the next 24 hours. It doesn't feel like Howie makes these types of moves and all of a sudden it's like, oh, what in the world? What is this? Like, he's very calculated. So I'd say keep an eye out for that. Follow us on Twitter too. We're very active on that as well. So if anything breaking, we'll share that. But I'm excited because I think this is the right move. You have that winning culture established. If it wasn't right in the locker room, not saying we know it is for sure, but if it wasn't, get him out of there and maybe we get a Shaq Leonard sign. That would be fantastic.
There you go. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because you're notified whenever we go live for these things. And of course, you're watching this, in the future when we're not live. Just stay tuned because we're probably going to have more breakdowns. Obviously, if they were to make another move for a Shaq Leonard or someone else of the like. So appreciate you guys. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. We will, of course, be covering the Eagles getting ready for the Bills game and into next week, and hopefully locking down this 1 seed. We'll see. For Josh Davis, I'm Thomas Mott. We sign off. Go Birds. See you guys.
Go Birds.